Hey guys, my name is Jamin. Thank you for visiting my YouTube channel where I try to bring you a wide variety of computer DIY, upgrade, and repair videos. In this video, I'm going to be working on an Acer Chromebook C720 series computer. The exact model is a C720-2103, but this should apply, the procedure here should apply to any C720 series laptop. In this video, I'm going to show you how to perform a full and complete teardown or disassembly, show you how to access all the components, how to remove them, how to put them back in. Okay, so first thing to do when getting in any computer, shut it off, unplug the power adapter, and remove the battery. Our battery's inside, so we got to take off our panel first, but you want to do those things because you want to have as little power running through the computer as possible to limit the chances of damaging anything. So first thing we're going to do now is go across the bottom panel, take off all the screws that we can see. Keep in mind, guys, when you're going into a computer, keep the screws that go to certain parts of the computer together and keep them separate from the other screws. Not all screws in a computer are going to be the same size, so you want to keep your bottom case screws together, your battery screws together, motherboard screws, whatever screws you have in your computer. Keep them together so you know where they go when you're reassembling the computer. Now that all of my screws are gone, I'm going to take my small flat pry tool. I'm going to go along the seam of the bottom case and the palm rest and pry up this bottom case. Just as a quick shout out, guys, the anti-static pad that I'm using, you see it under the computer, that's to prevent any damage to computer components when you're getting into it. Either an anti-static pad or an anti-static bracelet are great ideas when working on a computer. So for those supplies and also any tools, screwdrivers, pry tools, anything that you guys need help with, check out the link above. It'll be a referral link to a lot of the tools and supplies I use in my shop if you want help finding any of those things. So when you're putting your pry tool in there, make sure you don't go too deep. You don't want to damage any components by going too far in, but you basically just go along the outside seam and separate them. Once you've got it mostly off, you should be able to just muscle it out the rest of the way. Again, be careful, you don't want to break it. Once you've gotten it all free, it'll come off like this. There are no electrical components here, it's just a panel. So now you can put that off to the side. And now you see the inside of the computer, you have your battery, your motherboard, your fan. So now we're going to unplug the battery. Okay, so to remove the battery, it's fairly simple. You've got a screw here and a screw here. On mine, it's broken off, so I may not need to, I don't need to remove that screw, but you have two screws here you'd have to remove, and the battery plugs in right there. So I'm going to take my Phillips, I'm going to unscrew this battery, and then it unplugs right there. I'll zoom in a little more so you can see that port. So there's your battery port. The battery port is black and metal, and the battery plug that plugs into it is white. And if you guys look at yours, there's two little arms that come out from the white port. So you can put your fingernails there and push, or in my case, I'm going to take my flat pry tool. I'm going to push off on one side at a time, and that battery comes right out. Just like that. Over here, you have your solid state drive. I'm going to take my Phillips screwdriver, undo that single screw. After that screw is undone, we're just going to take the solid state drive and pull it back just a little bit. It comes undone, and then you wiggle it out from underneath these metal arms that are holding it down. So there's your solid state drive to this computer. So now I'll remove the fan and the heatsink assembly so you can see how to get that out. We'll again take our Phillips screwdriver and start undoing the screws. There's one here for the fan. There's one here for the motherboard, and one more screw under here for the motherboard. After those screws are up, we see the fan is plugged in right there, and also the antenna wire coming from your Wi-Fi card. The antenna wire are run around and through that fan. So to get this fan out, you have to unrun those antenna wires. Get them free. And then once those are free, you have to unplug it from the motherboard. It's the exact same kind of plug we saw over here with the battery. I'm going to take my small flathead pry tool and push on one end at a time until that plug comes out. There we go. It's held on by some tape, so you can just rip that up. And then we can put it back down when we go to put the fan back down. But now that fan and heatsink should be free. So there's your fan and your heatsink assembly. Now that this is out, you can clean out your fan. You can clean off your thermal paste, put some more thermal paste down if you're looking at an overheating issue. Get the rest of the motherboard out. We're going to need to unplug everything from it. So again, here we have your Wi-Fi antenna wires. We're just going to snap those up from the Wi-Fi card. Next thing we're going to want to do is take up these 3 ribbon cables. One's coming from your touchpad, one's coming from your keyboard, and one's coming from the USB board over here. So I'll zoom in now and show you how to safely remove those. So these are all held in the exact same way. They're a black port on the motherboard. There's a white clip on top of it used to secure the ribbon cable, and then the ribbon cable slides under the white clip. So to take these out, they're all going to be the same. I'm going to take my flat plastic pry tool and slide it underneath the white clip. This white clip snaps down to hold your ribbon cable in and pops up to release it. So I'm going to slide my flat tool in there and then push up. And that white clip comes up and this ribbon cable can now be released. After I release it, I'm going to push this clip back down for safekeeping. You don't want anything catching on that or breaking it. If these break, they're extremely hard to replace. If you do accidentally break one of these off, you'll have to replace it. It's very hard to get a ribbon cable to stick back in without that fastener. I'll have a video link above. I'll also include it in the description where you can get these and install them onto your motherboard if you do need to do that. So now I'm going to repeat the process over here. Just pop that up, slide the ribbon cable out, pop that back down. I'm going to pop this one up. It's a little smaller, but it's the same thing. Ribbon cable out, put that arm back down. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to remove to get the motherboard up is the LCD cable here. It runs through the hinge up here and plugs into your motherboard. If you notice on yours, there's a sticker that goes over the cable onto the port to hold it in place so it doesn't get loose. So we're going to have to gently peel that sticker up and peel it back to be able to pull out that plug. And then just like the other plugs, I'm going to push off one side at a time with my plastic pry tool to get this plug out. Nice and gentle. You don't need to force it. There we go. So now that's out. So after that's out, I have my last screw there for the motherboard. I'll take that out now. Oops, I forgot that screw there. Oh, and I did forget one plug, the speakers. So I'm going to take my little pry tool here, push off from each side. Again, just like the other ones. There we go. So now my motherboard is free. There's your motherboard. Flip it over. That's what it looks like. Now that the motherboard's off, we can continue to access either the LCD assembly or your palm rest. Either way, I'm going to have to undo these hinge screws to separate the LCD assembly from the palm rest. Now that my hinges are separated, I'm just going to give the palm rest a nice little lift up before I can put it back down and disconnect it from the hinges. Now that it's a little separated from the hinges, I'm just going to take my antenna wire, move that back, and the black antenna wire has to run across here and make loose from the hinges there. Now I can separate my palm rest from my LCD assembly. So there's your palm rest, there's your keyboard. As you can see here, your keyboard is not held in by screws. It's held in by a lot of little plastic rivets. In order to separate the keyboard from the palm rest, you'd have to snap all those up. And then to replace the keyboard, you wouldn't be able to fasten them down quite as well. This is called a French inset keyboard. So typically, if you're looking to replace a keyboard, you should replace the entire palm rest. If you have to replace just the keyboard, you can find different ways of trying to fasten it down. Electrical tape over the edges, things like that, but keep in mind it may never be as secure as this one was. So to gain access to your touchpad, you have some screws here that you can see, these three. You have these two screws and a couple smaller screws there for the shield over your touchpad. So you would undo all these screws, get your touchpad out if you're looking to replace that. Keep in mind you'll have to unplug the ribbon cable from the touchpad here. So here's your LCD assembly. You can either replace it as seen here, or you can open it up as I'm going to show you to replace the actual LCD if the screen is broken and you want to keep the rest of the LCD assembly. A lot of times with LCD assemblies, there'll be screws on the outside, maybe hidden with some black tape, but there are none here. We're just able to take our flat pry tool and go around the seam, just like we did with the palm rest and the bottom case, and separate the front bezel from the back panel. Again, it's just as important here to not put this in too far. you have wires, antenna cables, webcams, things running along the side. You don't want to break those. After you've gotten it most of the way up, you can just go across and slowly force it up. Keep in mind, a lot of these are held on by double-sided tape. So once you get it up, it should just come off just like that. And there's no electrical components or anything attached to it. It's just your bezel. Now that your bezel's off, you can see screws here, here, and here. That's what's keeping your LCD down. So to get your LCD up, we're gonna undo those screws. Keep in mind, make sure you're not damaging your LCD cable that comes up here. And as you can see, it's run along the side. Very big pain in the butt trying to get that back in there if you do have to replace it. Same thing with your antenna wires. They're also run up through here. Once you've got all these screws up, I'm going to take my plastic pry tool and just slide it under one of those. And you can pick your LCD up just like that. Flip it over here. And as you can see here, the LCD cable is held in right there at the bottom. Keep in mind, when you're replacing an LCD, you need the exact same size LCD, in this case 11.6 inches. You also need the LCD cable to be in the same spot of your LCD. The port can't be here, it can't be here. It's got to be in the same spot because this LCD cable will only reach this location. Also, you have to tell if this is a 30 or 40 pin. Most of the time you can't find that anywhere in the manual. You just have to count the pins just so you know this is a 30 pin. Now to take this LCD cable out of the LCD, you're going to take your flat pry tool, come up here, there's a sticker again. You're going to gently pry that sticker up, gently and slowly. LCD cables are fairly fragile and they break very easily. So now that I've had that sticker pried up, you can grab this black part and gently pull, but again, keep in mind that LCD cables are very fragile. So I'm going to peel that up, I'm going to hold my LCD and gently pull the cable out just like that. And then again, if you counted these pins here, it would be a 30 pin connector. So to put the LCD back, you're just going to plug it in like this. Nice and flat and flush, plug it in, make sure that it's secure, and then gently but firmly put that sticker back because that sticker is the only thing holding this from sliding out. Then you would gently, slowly rotate it back. And then once you have the LCD sat in place, all the screw holes line up, make sure the antenna wire are not under it, the other LCD cable end, make sure it's sitting down flush, and you'd put all your screws back for the LCD. Now that that's in place, we would bring our bezel back over, just put that into place, and then snap it back down. So the LCD assembly is fairly easy. Now to put the LCD assembly back onto my palm rest, I'm going to lay it down flat. I'm going to take my palm rest, lay it down flat under the hinges. There, try to get that lined up where it should go. And then once you do, you're going to bend the hinges back down like this so that you can now screw it in. After my hinges are fastened, I'm ready to bring back over my motherboard. My motherboard, I'm going to make sure a lot of my cables are out of the way, although it's kind of a pain. I'm going to set my USB ports, my power jack in there first, again making sure that all my cables are not laying down under it. Get them all out of the way, LCD cable, and once that's flush in there, I can reattach my motherboard. So now I'm going to bring that flat screw, that large flat screw, that went down here. And then the other screw, remember, went up here in the corner. And if you're ever looking for where your motherboard screws go, there's a white triangle or a white arrow pointing to that hole. That's where that screw goes. All these other holes don't have screws in them. So now that that's down, I'm going to plug back in my speakers over here. I'll zoom in. So now I'm going to take my speaker wire, put it right into the port there, and then just push it in. Fairly easy. Now for my 3 ribbon cables, as before, I'm going to pop up each clip. I'm going to slide the ribbon cable into it as slowly, gently as I can, nice and flat, nice and flush, and then pop that fastener down to secure it into place. I'll do it again to the keyboard. Now that those are in place, I'm going to take my LCD cable, line that up on that port, and then push it in firmly. Once that's nice and in there firmly, I'm going to make a real good effort of getting that sticker down as much as I can, because that helps hold it secure. Don't be too disappointed if you can't get it down all the way, but try your best. To get my antenna wire in, I'm actually going to undo that screw. I should have done this before, but it's easy to miss stuff like this. I'm going to undo that screw, lift my motherboard up just a little bit so that I can run my antenna wire down through here. So that I can put it in place under my motherboard. Then I'm going to put that screw back to hold the motherboard down. I'll bring back my fan here, get everything lined up. That screw goes there, heat sink, plug, and then I'm going to put that in place. I'm going to screw that down. I'm going to plug the fan into that port, same as the other ports. I'm going to take my antenna wire, run it back through the fan. Even though it's kind of a pain, it's best to run things the way that they should have gone. Now to get your antenna wire to snap down in place, they are just that, they're snaps. You're going to want to hold the antenna wire right over the snap and then press down. Just like that. And then your white one, hold it over, press down. It may take a few tries to get it down exactly. It takes a while to get used to that kind of snap, but just keep at it, you'll be okay. To get the solid state drive back in, we'd set down our solid state drive in those metal brackets and then slide it into the port there. And then we bring back over our screw and screw that down. The last thing you would do is bring back over your battery. So there's the battery, it sets down in place there. Apparently this computer, this battery screw is broken, and this one is also broken from the threading. So unfortunately for my computer, there's no way to fasten this down, but I can take this plug it back into the port, put it there nice and flush sideways, and then press in. And then you'd set the battery back in place. You guys would screw it in place. I can't screw it in place. But after that, your computer's reassembled. That's the video, guys. Pretty straightforward. It's not too complicated, but it does help to watch a video first, help to know what you're getting into before you start taking your computer apart. Any questions, check out the FAQs below in the description. It could save you some time getting an answer. If you have to leave me a question or comment, please do. I do try to address those as often as possible. Please remember to like and share if this was helpful. Subscribe if you enjoy do-it-yourself computer content. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I look forward to seeing you on my next video.